Hey students, Dr. Joe Crowder here, and want to talk to you about, well, what's in front of you here, early slavery rather than the new and improved transatlantic slavery. That's kind of what we're going to try and do today. I want you to know that this Greek motif here is showing Greek people who are very small receiving drinks from slaves. Now, these slaves are Persian slaves, and these Persians were defeated in battle and therefore owe their lives to the Greeks soldiers that saved them, and that's what we're witnessing. This is typically how the old slave system sort of worked. As we go forward through history, though, we're going to see slavery evolve, and there's going to be this thing called serfdom, in which slaves are not tied to a human being, but they're tied to land. They can't leave it. So no matter who the person is that's in charge of the land, they get some serfs kind of thing. While that is going on, I do want to point out that during the 13th century, these would be the years, the 1200s, Portugal did obtain a colony across the Gibraltar Straits in an area today that we call Morocco. I want to get that clear that that's in the 1200s. This is still kind of using the old style slave system, and any of the Berbers that they captured as they seized Morocco, these Berber people would then go on to become slaves back in Portugal. It's very few. It's just a number of defeated warriors who are then collected, not many, and then transported back to the home where the other soldier who defeated them will then have themselves a slave. This also happens when cities are sacked. When certain cities are sacked, if there's like a famous astrologer or a poet or a mathematician, those people are seized because they have some value back to the government in which they came from. I think you get the point. Anyway, by 1415, so what we're looking at then is there's no such thing as the New World yet. I mean, it's there, and there's empires on them, the Inca and the Aztecs, but the rest of the world knows nothing about them. So by 1415, what this map over here shows is that we have now found Portuguese people sailing down past the Sahara Desert, landing in a place called Sierra Leone. This is about as far as they got, and then they took Sierra Leone. So getting to a point, though, where we're going to be talking about the fall of Constantinople, which was an oh my God moment, because Constantinople will be taken by Mehmed II, who is an Ottoman Turk. He is a Muslim. And Constantinople was a Byzantium product. It was a Christian, Orthodox Christian city. It was considered then to be the Rome of the East, and it fell to a Muslim. And this is when Europe starts to go, uh-oh, we need to step it up kind of thing. So Constantinople is taken. The name is going to be switched to Istanbul. Mehmed II, the Turk, has created an oh my God moment. Europeans are starting to look at this and go, what do we do? So this oh my God moment means that there's an invitation by Pope Nicholas V to bring the Portuguese into the Mediterranean Sea. The Mediterranean Sea is a huge transportation network, and that's where the Ottomans now are. They're operating, they're building boats, they're building ships, they're actually taking over Mediterranean trade, and Pope Nicholas V is calling, hello, Portugal, you have the best ships in the world, and we would love it, Henry the Navigator, we would love it if you come in and help us contain the Arab Turk ships of the Ottoman Empire. And they begin to do that. Portugal comes into the Mediterranean Sea. They start to engage with Turkish ships, the Ottoman ships, and they start taking them as prizes. The thing is, some of those prizes happen to be human beings. You know, when you take a ship and you catch it, you have prizes. You have the cargo that's on the ship. Well, remember, Constantinople was taken by the Turks. And in the process of taking Constantinople, it was kind of damaged. So what's happening here is commodities from Africa are arriving in Constantinople, well, now Istanbul, to help rebuild the city back to its glorious splendor. And so we need laborers, and some of those laborers happen to be a few African slaves. So when the Portuguese take a ship, there's a few African slaves on it. Well, the Portuguese are confused because, yeah, we can sell the commodities, but are human beings commodities? Pope Nicholas V gives an answer. They are if they're Muslims. They are if they're pagans. They are not if they are Christian. Well, this is still the old style system of slavery. We caught a weapon of war or a transportation ship that belongs to the people we're duking it out with. So what do we do with these people? Pope Nicholas V, in 1455, Amane Damane gives the rights of the Portuguese to take slaves and resell them, just as if they were another commodity. Again, this is typical of history, slavery going back. You capture a few slaves, you can do what you want with them. Okay. This means that in Europe we start to see an influx of Africans arriving because the Portuguese bring them to Lisbon, Barcelona, parts of Italy, you know, all the Mediterranean ports, France in the south. And here's some other popes that followed the previous pope, Pope Nicholas V. We have Calixtus III, Sixtus IV, Alexander VI, and then Leo X. The thing about these popes is Calixtus, Sixtus, and Alexander, they all said that we're just going to follow what Nicholas V said. If you capture a ship and there are slaves in them, you can sell the slaves. So this is sticking to the old style. Now I have Leo X in 1514 bolded in a different color for a very good reason. He changes all of this. Leo X says, not only can you sell slaves that are captured, but you can go and capture black people in Africa and make slaves of them. You don't have to have this intermediary. And in fact, you can go out looking for people in Africa to enslave, put on ships, and then send them overseas to the New World. This is completely new. And after about 350 years of this, there will be over 12.5 million slaves sent to the New World. Okay, so it's Leo X that does it. Now, Leo X is also pretty famous for being a Medici. I'm going to pass on that, and that's another story. Anyway, I'm going to get to Diogo Cao, who in 1483 finally did something amazing. He was able to bypass Sierra Leone and continue down the windward coast, the Gold Coast, Benin, Biafra, Luanga, and then enter into Congo and Angola. Now, the thing about Diego, or that's what I call him, Diogo Cao, is he's Portuguese, he's sailing, he's trying to get down all the continent of Africa to see where it finally ends. He doesn't know. But he's hitting all these cities and towns and villages along the coast. And that's important because he's thinking as he's going that, you know, I need to prove to Africa or the Africans that I'm meeting, the great portion of them are nobility, noblemen, you know, they're kingdoms, just as they are kingdoms in Europe. So I want to take some of their noblemen and I want them to come with me back to Lisbon so they can see. Now, some historians, and I'm not going to name this one because he's actually a friend of mine, said that these Africans then accompanied Cal on his return. Accompanied? Well, according to another historian friend of mine, George Baer, in an article called The Franciscans and Portuguese Colonization in Africa and the Atlantic Islands, 1415 to 1499. No. What was really going on was the retention of 4 natives as hostages. Cal took the hostages. And then he told the people, I'm taking these hostages, I'm taking them, and I'm going back to Lisbon. And when I return, maybe 2 years later, my merchants better be there still in your country, helping you set up. Okay? So this is how it's done. This is how you set up a trading network. This is how the Portuguese did it. They would go visit a particular port town on West Africa and say, I'm going to leave a couple of my merchantmen here. Would your kids like to see the ship? I think so, yeah, they would love that. Okay, so they take the kids, they put them on the ship, and they are now prisoners. And then Cal turns around and says to the people, I'll be back in 2 years. I'm going to show them Lisbon. Oh, my merchants better be alive when I get back. Otherwise, get it? Whew! That's how you set up a trade network in the 15th century. Anyway, by 1506, well, the New World has been bumped into. We now have the Caribbean and South America, and people are screaming for labor. And here we have Afonso I, who is the king of the Congo. He's a king. Not only is he a king, but he sets up some immense trade with the Portuguese. Horses, that's what Afonso wants. He wants cattle. He wants religion. Please Christianize my people. And I would love gunpowder. Okay, now this is all great. Afonso shows that he is going to convert to Christianity. He actually becomes very devout. He learns Portuguese, and he learns it rather fast. He can speak it. He can write it. And he has letters going back and forth between himself, the king of the Congo, and the Portuguese king, the king of Portugal, and they write back and forth sending each other letters. So it seems to be, at this point in time, a pretty good connection for Portugal, except that the king of Congo had banished a few of his own, and they were named the Jaga. The Portuguese are giving the Jaga weapons of war. And it's a calculation by the Portuguese that if we want to take some things from the Congo, maybe we can do that with the help of the Jaga. We have a letter from 1526 that I briefly want to introduce to you. That particular letter is over here on my computer somewhere. There it is. And I've highlighted a few things. This is King Afonso, his letter to King João of Portugal. Again, the year is 1526. Columbus, 1492. We saw Leo X in 1517 giving approval for Portugal to take slaves out of Africa and take them to Brazil. So here's a letter from Afonso to King João of Portugal. Our kingdom is being lost, caused by the excessive freedom given by your factors and officials to men and merchants. How great the damage is. Merchants are taking every day our natives, the sons of our noblemen and vassals and our relatives. They grab them and get them. Our country is being completely depopulated. Your Highness, help us. And then on, they kidnap even noblemen and the sons of noblemen and our relatives and take them to be sold to the white men, who will then later on, they will be taken and embarked on ships, never to be seen again. Now I'm giving you this bump video, and I know it's rather long. Usually my bump videos are way less cumbersome than this and much smaller, but we are going to be focusing on modern world history. And for 356 years of the 500 years, slavery is a thing. And it starts here. And the reason it starts is the New World. Because native populations in the New World have this habit of dying because of the flu or the smallpox or some disease that Europeans have. And that means labor is necessary in order to grow the sugar and the coffee and the indigo and the tobacco and whatever else commodity is available back in Europe. They need to get those goods back to Europe. How are you going to do that if there's no labor force? The labor force has to come from somewhere. What I'm telling you is, ladies and gentlemen, slavery changes. In those 350 years, a conservative number is that 12.5 million Africans are going to be taken from one continent, put on ship, sailed across an ocean, disembarked in another continent, and forced to work for the rest of their lives, however long or short those may be. That's what this is about, and I need you to think about this as we read through our documents. Dr. K, I am out of here.